Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Hope you're having a great day and this beautiful day. It is a gorgeous and lovely day out. We have uh, the heat has broken. There's all manner of goodness, and I hope you're finding it today. We'll just wait for a few folks to come on the live stream so we can say hi. And we just had Sue and Ken who are up in the chapel. Uh, we're this Sunday is going to be our uh, scholarship Sunday, where we award scholarships from the church, then part of our scholarship fund, but also where we've had a few fundraisers and we've added a memorial fund, another plaque to our tree, and some of those who have been generous to the scholarship fund. So uh, they just got done hanging those plaques and those, which is just a wonder and a goodness to see the life of the church continue in all its different ways. Hey, good morning, Vicky. Good morning, John. All right, let's get going, friends. It is the 14th day of August. It's halfway through August. The 14th day of August here at 11:11, and I'm glad you're with us. I'm glad you're part of this journey, and that you might find on this day goodness and love in your midst. So it is. I want to read you a story that you never hear in August, and then we'll talk about maybe why. This is from the second chapter of Matthew. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, where is he who was born the King of the Jews? For we saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him. And assembling of all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ is to be born. And they told him, in Bethlehem, in Judea. For it is written by the prophet, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for you shall from you shall come a ruler who was the shepherd of my people Israel. And then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word that I too may worship him. And after listening to the king, they went away. And behold, the star that what they had seen when it rose and went before them until it came to rest over the place that the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with his mother, with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country and went home by another way. So, what is going on with that? Why are we here in August talking about the one of the great stories of Christmastide? And, and the reason is because today is the 14th day of August. Well, why? What? Who cares? Well, because it is the anniversary of the completion of the cathedral in Cologne, Germany. Now, again, why do we care? The Cathedral of Cologne, Germany, was begun in 1248. 1248. So nearly 800 years ago. In 1248, the old cathedral that had been there prior, which had been a pilgrimage site and reliquary site, had burned down, and it was the desire of the to and almost immediately they began to build this newfangled church in the Gothic tradition. There's only other really one great Gothic cathedral that was on the scene in Amiens, France, and they got a site of it, and they began to work on the Cologne Cathedral in 1248. It would be 632 years of work and labor. That's 22 generations of effort that until in August 14th, 1880, the cathedral would be deemed complete. 22 generations of people at some form or another put their hands to it. Now, there were huge swaths of time in which there was no progress at all. During the French Revolution, the French actually captured Cologne, and they used it as a stable and a barn and as storage, and storage. That literally there were farm animals running through the cathedral. That there was a time in the middle there in which the very end that the cathedral, there was no movement for nearly 150 years. For there was a crane, a wooden crane that hung over the apse for 148 years that never moved. 140 years of no movement at all on the cathedral itself. And yet, again and again and again, there would be some excitement to begin the work on the Cologne Cathedral. And finally, and especially again, it would become interesting with the neo-Gothic revival that would come in the early 19th century. People would get excited, and they would begin, and that the work began again in earnest on the Cologne Cathedral, and it was completed on this day in 1880. Upon its completion, for 7 years, it actually held the the honor of being the tallest building in the world. It was, or for 4 years, sorry. It was only then surpassed by the Washington Monument, which would be finished in 1884. Now we think about that. Now that actually, and now the Cologne Cathedral is only the second tallest building in Cologne. There's actually a telecommunications tower and building that is taller even than the Cologne Cathedral. But in its time and in its day, which I think says incredible things about it, is now what again does this all have to do with the story of the birth of Jesus and the three wise men? The Cologne Cathedral, before it was even the Cologne Cathedral, before it was the church that was prior there, had been a site of pilgrimage and worship since the beginning of Christianity in Germany in the 4th century. It had become a place of worship, and it became, even before the new cathedral had begun, even in the earliest of times, a site in which the relics, the three skulls, in this case the three heads of the three wise men, were in repose in the Cologne Cathedral. Now you can choose to kind of get excited about that or not. That's not my point this morning. You can choose to say that oh, it's probably not their heads, and they went how did they get from being Persian kings or wise men to the center of Cologne? There's plenty of stories about that, but that's not the point. But the point is that this point of worship, this point of place that had become this, where these things had set, where these where this reliquary, which is incredibly beautiful and incredibly gold, this the beauty of this place and the holiness of this place, for whatever reason in whatever way that it was determined, but it came to pass. All of this would begin to be this focal place for 632 years of construction, 22 generations worth of living, to get people to come about one of what is considered the greatest Christian buildings in the world. It's considered within the top three. There's no question about it. And it's incredible storied past of it was in during World War II. It was bombed 84 times, and Cologne itself was firebombed about 70 times. And yet although it sustained some damage, it was never destroyed, and it was almost immediately after the war it was repaired. By 1948 it was back to its old self. What the Now, what's the point of all this? Why do we care? It's a long time ago. Yes, it's a beautiful building. Yes, it's a beautiful thing. But I want to suggest to you that the this little line that comes from the story of the wise men, this little line that says they went and they worshiped Jesus, and they went and worshiped the Christ child, and having been warned in a dream, they went home by another route. That's the last scripturally we ever hear of the wise men. It's the last, and there are many stories in the church after that, but that's the last we hear of them. But it's not the last of their story. The stone cutters that began cutting the stones in 1248, we probably don't know their names, probably know nothing about them, but their enduring legacy, their little chisel marks, and their little work, their little effort along the way is still alive and still at work and still is the very basis of the one of the most beautiful buildings in the world, and which houses one of the relics of the one of the most central stories in Christendom. Friends, this when we talk about cathedrals, when we talk about these relics, I'm not asking you to go into magical thinking or not. I'm not even thinking about enchanted thinking. What I'm asking you to think about is that you and your faith life is like one of those little workers on the side of the cathedral. Your work is like that is this way it has this your life has the same pattern of this grand cathedral that is at work, that there are times in which you just can't get anything done, where there's nothing but old kind of relics. There are times in our lives in which we are completely overwhelmed by an enemy, and that they just pack us up full of all kinds of stuff that we would rather not know and rather not have. There are times in which we shine with the glory of God, because that is the way we are made. And that our contribution to the life of Christendom, in whatever way that works, whether it's you raised your children, you lived. I'm not talking about that you're lighting candles in church every day. I'm not talking about that you're out there handing out tracts on the side of the road. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about your willingness to rise every day and set your hands to the work that God has placed before you, and move through your day with that diligence and that wonder. It took 632 years, and wars and defeat and disease and brokenness and heartbreak and loss and bombings and fire to bring forth a cathedral. And you're and that the work of God in this world, just like those little workers on that cathedral, you have your fingerprints on the cathedral of God's kingdom in this world too. We are so instantly focused in our age today. We get upset if our Netflix show has to buffer. If we get the little circle and then it's like, oh, what? Hey, what? Come on! I want to, what? I want to watch my show. I want to watch my stories. we we're where our nervous systems now are so programmed for this instant sense. You know, I noticed it so much in that my mom's house still has a rotary dial phone in it. I don't know if some of you may not even know what a rotary dial phone is, but they existed at one time, and they were so you had to take the number and she has a touch tone, but it was on the wall and it never got changed out, and it's just bolted onto the wall and it never stopped working, so it just still works. It wasn't a conscious idea to preserve the museum, but she has her little touchstone phone and all that sort of stuff, but it's still there, the home that I grew up in. And if sometimes if you actually had to pick it up and make a call on it, and go through, which I did not so long ago, like it was interminably long. It felt like I felt like I could have written a letter and mailed it in the time that and it got to the receiver by the time I you know I sounded out the 7 digits on the phone. We're so hardwired for things to move fast and move instantaneously and even if we're kind of separate from the culture, it's still we're still so radically different about that. But I want you to remember God's time. I want you to remember your labor within God's time. God builds cathedrals, and God is busy building a cathedral in you and with you. And that in God's building of a cathedral, it takes 632 years. It takes the entire project going moribund and then having to be restarted and reinvigorated. It takes fire and war and famine and all manner of things that have to be endured and worked on and satisfied and damages repaired in order to build this house of God of this beautiful story. And that we think it should somehow be like our phone. We should just hit the send button and just go. Because again, we're just so hardwired. We can feel bad about ourselves because we haven't, our prayer life falls apart or something else falls apart in our life, and we just can't keep it together, because somehow we got the idea that our faith life is supposed to be this zero defect thing. No, no. Friends, my hope for you is to remember the lessons of the of the of the three wise men, the of the their interment and their enshrinement in the cathedral in Cologne. And remember that journey, to remember that God is calling us home, but calling us home by another way, calling us home by the way that we dreamed of, the way that cathedral that stands in Cologne, that was commissioned, over 700 years ago, that existed only as a dream in the architect's head, and yet now still stands as this glorious and beautiful monument. Friends, you are a cathedral with the hands of God upon you. And you are also in the business of cathedral building, in which generations to generations to generations will set their hand to the work of building the kingdom of God. The great line from the 145th Psalm: one generation shall commend your works to another, and shall declare your mighty acts. Declare your works to the next generation, just as the last generation has declared your works. I don't know how it's going to look like. I don't know what it's going to be. I doubt it will be on a map as glorious as Cologne, as the Cathedral of Cologne. But what I do know, and it may be as anonymous as that little worker was in 1248 who first began his hand chipping away at rough stones to make them smooth, to make a house for those holy relics. But however and wherever it lays, however and wherever your offering comes to commend your works are commended, not only to the next generation, but they are lifted up and a declaration of God's mighty acts in the world and in your life. So, friends, on this day, I hope you will, you know, maybe take a look at the Cathedral of Cologne if you want. I can put a little link down there. But and maybe remember that you are on this grand journey to maybe just one point in your life, just once in your life, to get a glimpse of the Christ child in your midst, and that will be enough for the whole journey. That you are being called home, but you are being called home by a different route, not the one you wanted, not the one you planned, not the one you thought, but the one that God has prepared for you. So that somehow and someday there is a cathedral built around your being and your life. And because God is in the business of making cathedrals. And not only are you that grand cathedral of the dwelling place of the Spirit, but so too are you the cathedral worker. And that you commend to generation upon generation the mighty acts of God. Friends, I hope this day that you'll find those and hold them and hold them dear, and understand that God is calling you home, and maybe just by a different route. All right, friends, we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.